Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Hello, and welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. Today, I wanted to take an opportunity because our community is growing so rapidly to sort of reintroduce myself. I am your very humbled and happy host, Rachel Erickson. I have a 20-year background in the corporate apparel industry, working as a technical designer, product manager, developer. I've held so many different roles. I was even a graphic designer at one point, and I did merchandising. And what I am now bringing into the world is my knowledge, my experience as a freelance consultant, where we help brands either start their companies and get their product out into the world, or we come into large corporations and help basically fill headcount. So we become team members on these companies' squads, and we come in and we either fill roles that they're trying to fill full time. And so we kind of inject ourselves while they're doing all of their interviewing processes so that they don't lose out on any time or any work. Or we come in on a more permanent basis and we work with these companies from year to year because of the expertise that we have at the low price ticket that we're able to offer because we're freelancers and we're not asking for additional benefits or anything else from the companies. So this is what I'm out here doing. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse today in this short new podcast episode about me and what my values are and what values we are now bringing to Unmarked Street and the business of apparel as we continue to grow in our communities. So I recently went ahead and took a VIA results test, and it stands for Values in Action. So VIA is something that my therapist actually recommended that I do. We were starting to transition from a lot of my therapy in a negative light, not therapy in a negative light, but I've been overcoming a lot of terrible burnout, some anxiety in my life. At one point, I was diagnosed with severe clinical depression. And so we have started to really transition from that point where we've been trying to just get me through the day to day. Like, how do I battle the meetings that I'm going to have today? How do I stay energized for the kinds of work that I know I need to do? How do I reduce anxiety and step into a room feeling ready to go and calm and not feeling like I'm going to bounce off the walls or my heart is going to jump out of my chest for something that I'm making up in my head, right? Like we did therapy on that for several years together. And I am really happy to say that we've gotten to a point in my therapy where a lot of that has fallen away. I've learned so much more about myself, how to handle those kinds of situations. I am in just a much happier place in my life because of starting my own business, being able to be my own boss, create my own schedule, work with the kind of people that I love to work with. And so we took a transition, and I was really interested in sticking with her to start exploring positive psychology. And so positive psychology is a lot more about how to take situations and regulate yourself in a way that is aligned with your own values. And so to be able to do that, we needed to know what my values were and what my highest strengths were. So this was kind of like also a strengths test, like you can do Myers-Briggs. I've done a whole bunch of these other different things. I've done disc tests. I've done, there are so many, and I love them. But this was a new one because we really wanted to figure out how it was going to work with my therapy. So the results were really interesting for me. A couple tend to be steadfast. Like every time I do one of these tests, it comes up. Learning is always one of my number one things. I am a lifelong learner. I think that's what's really led me into entrepreneurship. I love to read. I've always loved to read. When I was a little kid, I would be the kind of kid who would be inside at the window with a book, like watching the other kids play outside and loving every freaking minute of it because I was immersed in my book, like using my imagination, creating these worlds. And that has definitely carried me forward into adulthood and into my career. I still love to read. I am absorbing books as fast as I always can. I'm taking free workshops. I'm trying to figure out who can teach me what and how can I learn as fast as I can to grow my company and add new services, add new projects, and get more out to you in a way that makes sense and something that I can always kind of be up leveling what we're doing at the company. So I am constantly always doing that. And surprise, surprise, learning was still a top value when I did this latest one. but something that had really changed for me ever since kind of shifting my mindset and even like my physical being from having a lot of anxiety and being really burnt out and being overworked into this new positive light and into this new positive space that I've been in my life. And my number one value this time around came out as love. And that really meant a lot to me. It was something that I feel like these tests finally read me for the first time. I am a huge empath. Like I can be in almost any situation and just cry at the emotion of something either being happy or being a little bit sad. Or if I see other people just like laughing on the street, I'm like, oh, that's so amazing that other people are happy. I don't know. I'm like, I have this like very deep empathetic love for other people and for humans and for animals and just to almost just squash the hate and the dislike that people have for other people out in the world. Love for me is just something so important. And if you're in my inner circle in my life, you know how loyal and how loving I can be. I go all in. If you are part of that circle, you are part of my client base. I care so deeply about the people that I love. And so this test coming up with love as number one, I think was something that really exposed me and myself for the first time. When I was taking all of these tests in my corporate roles, a lot of the things came out as very professional results. And I do pride myself on being very professional, especially when I work with my clients. But there's so much more to me than just my work and what I do. And so number one for me was love. And if you work with us at Unmarked Street or become a community member at the Business of Apparel, I just want you to know that you become part of that inner circle for me. Like I truly love helping my clients grow, scale their companies, get amazing product out there. When they have wins, I have wins. Like I feel so deeply for the ups and downs that they're going through on a regular basis. And I really internalize that and I hold it very dear in my heart. We are just now starting some new coaching programs where I've got my online course out and we're starting to have office hours with some of our new community members. And it is just so amazing for me to hear about all of the different ideas that are coming from different people in our community. People have like such brilliant minds. And so I am just so pleased to be welcoming this new group of community members into my heart and into my circle because I know I'm going to go all in on them. And at the same time, it fulfills me so much because it is my number one value. So number one was love. Number two was love of learning, which I've kind of already talked about and no surprise at all. I love to learn. I will absorb information as fast as I can, everywhere that I can, from everyone that I can all the time. And I think that is what kind of sets us above the rest when we come to Unmarked Street and the Business of Apparel. I am constantly trying to learn new skills. I am constantly trying to become a better entrepreneur, a better business leader. I started my own small apparel brand just so that I could learn the nuances and the struggles of what it's really like to be out there starting your own apparel brand so that when I'm helping my high ticket clients, I can absolutely speak their language. I know their pain. I know how hard it is. And so I love to learn in different ways. I love to test different things out. I love to hear from you. What are you liking? What are you not liking? The learning for me is just so important. It's such a huge value. So that was number two on my list. Are you frustrated by feeling like an outsider in your own industry? You're not alone. I spent years feeling the same way. Are you tired of endless research and you can only learn this stuff by getting a job in fashion advice? Me too. That's why I created the Business of Apparel online course. My years of insider knowledge condensed into video tutorials, demos, and downloads. Learn at your own pace, no fluff. Just key topics like building target profiles and mastering financials. This information is genuinely unavailable anywhere else. Grow your brand, become an apparel industry aficionado, and unlock millions in potential revenue. The value? Over $50,000 with millions potential for your brand. Don't miss out. Sign up for the Business of Apparel online course today at thebusinessofapparel.com/course. And then we move into my last three of the top five, which are, I'm going to call my three H's. Number three is honesty. If you've been listening to me on the podcast for a while, you know that I like to tell it exactly like it is. The apparel industry is in a tough place, and it has been for a couple of years now. I've been talking to a lot of other fashion freelancers and consulting agencies out there, and a lot of us are kind of wondering what's going on. And usually around this time, when we see this cycle in the apparel industry where things get really tough and unfortunately brands have to shut their doors and big brands do layoffs, and we start to see the job market fill up with people who are seeking jobs, all of a sudden, after about a year of that, we will see it shift. And that is when our consulting agencies really start to take hold in the market. We usually get tapped for the first roles that end up opening up because companies have a little bit of extra budget. Things start turning around in their sales, but they're not able to open headcount yet because it's not part of a greater picture for their companies. So contractor dollars are a really easy way for them to say, okay, I've got this budget that's opening up just a little bit, but I don't have the headcount from like my HR team. So we're going to go ahead and hire a couple of consultants to fill these spaces, start taking some work off of my teammates' plates so that we can, alleviate all of that. We can reduce some burnout, we can reduce some stress, and we can bring some experts in to really elevate and help us in what we're doing. But that is not really happening right now. This stagnation stage of where we're at in the industry, layoffs continuing to go on for more than a year, brands really not starting to open up budgets right now for more than a year. The economy's just been in a weird place. We're seeing more and more small businesses have to shut their doors or having to figure out how to pivot or having to do something completely different. At the same time, we're watching fast fashion take off and become these billion-dollar conglomerates because a lot of people are really pinching pennies in the economy that we're in right now. Like groceries are freaking bonkers right now. I saw this this video on social the other day, and it made me laugh so hard because it was so true. And it was like, I really don't like to talk a lot about the expensive trips that I go on, but I just got back from the grocery. And I just thought that that was so hilarious because every single grocery trip is right now such an expensive trip. And it was on like this travel person's post. And so you were thinking that they were going to start talking about all, like some expensive fancy vacation that they went on. They just mentioned the grocery store. But that is so real in our lives right now. And so people are, if they want to go apparel shopping or they need new clothes, they're looking for a cheap alternative. And so we're watching fast fashion grow faster than we want it to. And a lot of these small businesses who are out there making great quality product, making sustainable product, but have to price it a little bit higher, we're seeing them pushed out of the market. And so the industry is kind of going in a way that we aren't thrilled to see. And for those of us who are consulting, like we're starting to really figure out what has to be next for our businesses because we're not seeing that turnover the way we were expecting. And for those of you out there who are searching for jobs, whether you were part of the layoffs and so you need a new job, or whether you feel like you were stuck behind at a corporate job where you ended up getting a lot of work thrown at you after layoffs happened, and you are looking for the next thing. You're looking to get out of the situation that you're in. You're looking for a new employer. It becomes really, really tough. And so honesty, I am all about being honest about all of that stuff. If you guys have any questions about what's going on in the apparel or the fashion industry right now, and you don't feel like you're really getting the meat of the information, please send questions my way. I'm happy to do some research on it and give you my opinion. That is definitely what I am here for. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. That's just number three. Honesty is a huge value of mine. When I bring family and friends into my honesty is something that I pretty much demand. And so we have had some issues, I will say, definitely even in my own family, where when people are lying or people are making up stories, like I really struggle with that because honesty is just so important to me. So number four is humor. And this is something that I feel like I'm not doing a great job of portraying to you because I am always trying to come off as professional, and I'm trying to figure out how to kind of flip that switch as we grow at the business of apparel. So I love to make people laugh. It's one of those like feelings inside my body that just, it like glows when I can make someone else laugh. And I think that that's probably pretty common for a lot of other people, but it just is such an amazing feeling to know that I was able to put a smile on somebody else's face. So as we move forward, I'm going to be working on trying to put out a little bit funnier content, get my personality out there a little bit more. I know that it's, a risk maybe necessarily for me because people can definitely poke a lot more fun at me and tell me how silly and stupid I am if I'm out there being funny all the time. But it's definitely a side of me that I would like for you to learn and like for you to see. So we're working on that. Last but not least, the number 5 on my top 5 for the VIA results was hope. And hope for me has become such a huge thing, I think, over the last couple of years. This was another thing that showed up on my top 5 that was very unique from in the past. I think in the past, I got reliability was a big one. Knowledge was another big one. Like I really value people who are intelligent. And I absolutely hold me and my team to the highest regard when it comes to reliability. If you're working with me, you know that I am holding our standard of reliability as high as it possibly can be. And so to see hope on here, I think really spoke to how much work I've done in trying to turn anxiety and depression and sometimes a very pessimistic view and a cynical view of life into a very optimistic view of life, and how going through this new positive psychology that we've been working on together, I'm really able to hope for a better future. I'm able to visualize what I think my life could become years from now. And it's a beautiful picture. And so now I'm just like putting steps in place of how do I get there? Not, oh, I'll never get there. And that's just, I'm just so unlucky. Nothing's ever going to happen for me. We've stopped all of that. Instead, now we're just figuring out, I have a dream and a vision for a reason. It's been put in my heart for a reason. And so now I just have to figure out how to go make it happen. And even along the way, I might not make that, I might not make the ultimate 10-year dream happen, but along the way it might shift. And along the way, I might find some other dreams and visions that were just as worthy, if not more so, just because I'm going through the journey. And that might sound really frou-frou, and I totally get that, but that is 100% what this hope is about for me. And I also really believe that we at Unmarked Street are here to make positive change in the apparel industry so that we can make positive change on this planet and in this world. And my hope for that, I just hold such a strong belief that we can truly make a difference, when I think there are a lot of people out there who don't believe that one person or one company can have a big impact. I am constantly trying to figure out, how can we have that impact? How can we grow? And how can we create more sustainable processes? How can we get that out into the world more? How can we help you build your sustainable process roadmap for your brand so that regardless of the fabrics that you're using, regardless of the factory that you're using, and now those are important things too, don't get me wrong, but regardless of all of that stuff, do you have a process internal to your own team where you can now raise your hand and say, we are sustainable on the things that we do inside the walls of our own company? We don't need 8 different prototypes. We only need 2, which means we didn't throw away 16 samples. We only maybe needed to throw away 4. And that might sound small, but if you're doing 100 different styles and you're doing that for every single style, it adds up really fast. We don't want to throw all of that stuff away. We are now doing 3D renderings for Proto 1 and Proto 2. We're not actually even stitching a garment until we get to Proto 3, and then that Proto 3 is approved, boom, done. These are the kinds of sustainable processes that we can teach you and we can absolutely implement in your company. And I just feel so hopeful that this kind of work is going to go out and create an impact for our industry and in our world, because the apparel industry is the number 2 polluter on this planet after oil and gas. And we need to start figuring out how to flip that switch. So if you're interested in learning anything more about me, please let me know. Again, my name is Rachel Erickson. I am the host of the Business of Apparel podcast, and it is such a pleasure to have you here. I am so honored, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.